Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Cowboys of the Osage podcast, brought to you by the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum, located in historic downtown Pawhuska, Oklahoma. Glad to have you. You can catch us on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, and Apple, and all other great places that you can listen to podcast. Well, as always, I have my co-host with me, Mr. Rodeo historian himself, Jimbo Snively. We got him on the phone today. Hey, Jimbo, where are we at? Who do we have sitting here with us today?
Hey, Cody boy, it's another great day in Osage, man. Cody, I'm still up here in the Osage, but you're down in McAllister with a couple special guests. We've got Mr. Mike Chase, a heck of a steer roper, who's qualified for an impressive 7 NFRs. He's won or placed at all the big steer opens around the country. He won the Windy Ryan. He won the Ben Johnson right here in Pawhuska. Second at Cheyenne. We're going to talk about his career and also how he prepares for the big steer roping finals up next week at Mulvane. And we also have Mr. Pearl Snap Fever himself, highly trained fashion reporter Sean Williams.
How are you, Jimbo?
So it should be an interesting visit for sure with both those guys. And Sean and Mike, welcome to the Cowboys of the Osage podcast.
Thank you.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having us down here. Thanks for putting up with us today. We know you're getting ready for the Steer Open finals this next week, and it's a pretty important week around your house, I would assume.
Yes, it is.
And Sean, thank you for coming all the way from Sulphur, bringing your fashion and your pearl snapness down here.
I thought you was going to say something else.
Yeah.
Oh, it's always good to. I'll drive anywhere to visit with you, Cody. You know that you're. I'll tell you what. Today you really come outstandingly prepared for a fashion report.
Hey, Jimbo, we got to get this one out of the way before we start talking rodeo.
There
and
you
all.
go.
I wore my fanciest pearl snap shirt down here today.
And he said Mike was having a little bit of trouble because the finals coming up, and Mike really. That's a nice button up, but we ought to talk about some pearl snap for the finals coming up to really make you look sharp and dress it up a little bit if you're interested. But Cody's got on today a cedar-based pearl snap. That's actually mountain cedar with some domestic charcoal accents and some sterling silver undertones that are really catching the light, almost blinding me, Jimbo. It's really nice. And of course, I've got on a soapwood base with some Italian chocolate accents and European tartar undertones. That's a very, very good shirt for public speaking and podcasts. That's why I wore it. But do you have one on today, Jimbo, or are you still in your button-ups?
I'm still in my button-up. I looked for some the other day, and I just couldn't find the color I want.
I'll try to work with you some more next time I'm up at Pawhuska.
Yeah, that's a very relaxing color you got on today. I can see Mike.
It brings everything down. It does.
Mike opening it up a lot just because of that color.
That was the idea. I'm glad you noticed that. You are really picking up on this stuff, Cody. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I put on another 5 pounds since the last time I called you. So
I thought it was more like 10, but you're filling the wrinkles out of that shirt pretty nice, kind of like me.
I'm following all your fashion advice you've been giving me.
Well, let's talk steer trip, Dad.
Let's talk steer open. Let's talk Mike. Let's talk Mike Chase. Hey, Mike, where were you raised? I know it wasn't right here in McAllister, Oklahoma.
I was raised in Beloit, Kansas.
Beloit, Kansas.
On a farm.
Well, for everybody that don't know where the heck Beloit, Kansas is, I've been there and I don't even remember where that booger is. Where exactly is Beloit, Kansas? Is that a part
of Kansas that actually looks like Kansas?
No, not too bad. It's about 65 miles north of Salina, right there on the Kansas-Nebraska line.
You bet.
Real stereotypical Kansas town. How big a town was that?
About 3,500 counting the surrounding area people. Not a lot there.
Yeah, I think Beloit actually has one of the only claim to fame is, besides Mike coming from there, of course, is one of the only McDonald's to ever shut down from lack of business in the whole nation.
There's only 2 of them shut down in the United States, Beloit, Kansas, and Pecos, Texas.
I'll be darned. I had no idea. That alone was worth the drive up here.
So, how's a farm boy on the prairie get interested in rodeo up there, Mike?
My dad had always rodeoed at the amateur and stuff, and just kind of followed it, and just all I wanted to do, and just went to all the rodeos I could. And
so your dad was a guy that liked to rope and rodeo a little bit. So
he was mainly a rancher, liked for me to rodeo, and I enjoyed the rodeo. We went to all the high school stuff and the college and all that.
So your family really got behind you and helped you out.
My family's been really good to me.
Yeah, I noticed Mike was one of the first guys I ever knew when I first met him. We went up to his house to haul some hay or something from up there, and he had a thing that it was like the Smarties and stuff now, but it was one of the first things that people. First roping devices.
It's a Buford,
training device. High tech training roping device is what it was. You could heel it and maybe head it. It was a fancy deal. So I could tell they took their roping pretty serious.
Never saw nothing like that back then, much like you do now.
Nobody had them.
Yeah,
didn't really know that they.
That's probably about the time they had that Roy Cooper was promoting the calf roping dummy, where you kicked it and they shot that little dummy out and you could catch it and step off. You remember them? I thought that was high tech back in the 80s.
Roller roper.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, roller roper.
Only the rich kids had them, but I got to play on them a time or two.
Yeah, there was a kid that had one just down the road from us. Troy Gaston. He was the only kid I knew with the roller roper.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was rich or not, but he was a...
Well, that's what I thought back then. I mean, it might not have been, but...
I thought the same thing.
That's what I thought. Did you rope calves, too, and team rope when you was in high school?
I roped a little bit of calves and team rope.
Team rope.
He had a pretty successful high school career. Tell us about your high school career, Mike.
I made the high school finals and won the year-end team roping one year, and always made the high school finals, I think, twice.
What year was that? About
90, 91.
Oh, you bet.
Early 90s.
Early 90s.
You was close to my age then. I graduated in 88, so I never made nationals, but I've rodeoing down in Oklahoma. I knew some of them boys.
College. So, high school champion, state champion of Kansas?
Yeah.
Kansas state champion. What was some of the guys you were rodeoing with there in high school in Kansas that we might have heard of nowadays?
Oh,
you don't think about all these great ropers coming from Kansas, but there's been a handful of them for sure.
Yeah.
Lionel Weaver. He made the finals in team roping.
Oh, yeah, Blaine Lionel Weaver.
2 or 3 times. There's a lot of guys that just didn't go a bunch, but, that rope pretty good.
You bet. There's a lot of them up there in northern Oklahoma at that time, too. J. Paul Williams and Justin Whitehouse and Buck Winterbottom. A lot of them boys that was really good ropers right there on the Kansas line that I roped with, too, that was a lot better than me. But I was good friends with them.
Like Steve Orth was in there.
Oh, yeah. That guy's a serious roper.
Yeah, I don't know him.
And horseman.
Ryan Miller was living in Kansas before he moved to Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah.
John Barnes, the great roping teacher, that's his boy.
Yeah. There was a lot of guys that could rope. I mean, but you saw a bunch of them that could rope, like from other states all the time, too. Like Cody O was my age, and
yeah,
seen him in the calf roping, and there was a bunch of them.
Yep, that era produced a lot of ropers from between Oklahoma and Kansas and Texas, because I got the tail end of it in high school. We had a big 19 and under roping down there at Jerry Wells put on 10-head calf roping at Salford, and Fred Whitfield and Ray Rabin, some of them guys all come down there, and I didn't have a chance.
Yeah. It sounds like that was a pretty nasty one to enter.
Oh, man.
Right there.
That was cool, though.
So you were pretty successful all through high school. College, you had to move away from Beloit, I assume. There wasn't a college with a rodeo team there.
No, I went to Pratt for 2 years under Rocky Patterson, and then a year at Panhandle State. And I didn't even care about roping steers then. I was just about team roping calves, and watched it. And that was when Patterson had just started. I watched him. It was interesting to me. I kind of liked it, but I was still thinking I could do something in the team roping and calf roping. But when I moved to Panhandle State, they showed me that I wasn't quite as fast as they were.
It gets a different level in college. It sure does.
Well, it wasn't to college. I went down there to Panhandle State, and there was Corey Kuntz and old cheesy, I can't think of his name, but he said when they showed up at the jackpot one time and they run one at the other end 5, and I roped one in front, and I was 6, and I'm like, what? Clock must have got me.
Yeah.
But they did it every time, and mine was at the same clock. So
I'll savor that.
Who all was you going to college with down there?
Jet Johnson was there when I was. He's won the world in heeling. Trying to think.
Did you get to spend a lot of time around Jet down there?
Some. I roped around him. Down there at Panhandle State, you could go rope every day somewhere.
Really?
I went and roped Kez with Robert Etbauer was training calf at that time, and I'm talking about they roped every day. We roped there, and then you could load up and go rope team rope with a bunch
There's
of
roping too, probably. I mean, when I was growing up, almost 5 days a week, you could go within 100 miles of Murray County, Oklahoma, and go to a calf roping or a team roping. Just almost every day of the week.
When I went down there, it was they told me when you showed up there, if you want to make the finals in your rodeo career, you need to be there.
Really?
And there's a reason why, because them guys could rope, and that was it was serious as a heart attack.
Yep.
All them guys were pretty serious about it.
Mike, when did you first think that you might want to make your living with a rope in your hand? There's very few people out there that can that make the sacrifice and the decision to make a living with a rope in their hand.
Well, I've always wanted to, and then I kind of got around your dad, Rocky Garnett, and he showed me how you could make a living. And it made a big difference right there, because you could see that there was an opportunity to make some of your living roping. And you had to put the time in to do it. I mean, it wasn't a half a day deal. We got up, we roped every day, all day. And we got up next day and did the same thing again. I mean, you did have to pay the price a little bit.
Different level.
So, on your typical practice day back then, what would that consist of?
Well, your dad had so many outside horses, we'd probably break away on 7 or 8, tie down on 4 or 5 of them, and we'd log them, and we'd tie on the ground till when we got lights. We tied on the ground till midnight. There'd be a group of guys we'd tie every day.
Hey, for everybody that don't know exactly what breakawaying a steer is in the practice pen, would you explain that to us?
We'd always going to keep them horses free. We'd just run up and rope them horns and keep them horses free and take them to the back end and make them stop and break away. And then when we got ready, we'd log them, just like you would, like he's going to tie one down, and then we would, then that week we'd get them horses, see where we was at on them. We'd go tying down on them, see where they was at.
So what exactly is logging a horse, Mike? You said you broke away, then you log some. What is logging a horse?
Got 2 logs, and we'd log them horses, trying to teach them to get the same feel as they would if they'd tied one of those steers down. Like get the hit and be able to stop on command, and leave from out from underneath you. And
now those logs, I hadn't done a lot of logging, but how far distance, like from that first log, would you leave the second one? 10, 12 feet or?
Well, I think ours were like 6 or 7.
Was the first one heavier than the second one?
Usually the second one was a little.
The second one was a little heavier than the first one.
Yeah, it had a head weight on it, and then a log, and then you had another chain to another log that had a V in it, and we just worked them horses around.
So yeah, when you rope a steer, Sean, which I know you know, right when you turn them around, that's called your first jerk, but your second jerk, that's your hardest jerk when you actually take them to the ground. And your horse takes all the weight of the ground plus the steer. So
yep,
and the best way I could probably describe it.
In that arena dirt, that gets kind of heavy depending on ground conditions sometimes too, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. What about your grandpa, Jimbo? Did you ever see him log any horses out there?
Yeah, we logged horses, not a lot. He didn't believe in just logging them a lot. He logged them in the spring, just stouten them up a little bit, and then if they were working good, he tried to keep them off the log. They kind of get silly and stuff, and there just wasn't any reason to. But we used 2 logs too, just like Mike said, for the second jerk, but it was mostly kind of a spring deal, getting them stoutened up a little bit in the spring.
Well, they had them horses doing a little bit different pattern back then too than they have them now. So
yeah, Right, for sure.
And they might have been better horses. You only had to log them once a year in the spring or so.
Yeah, might have been. I don't know, but we didn't just log a horse a lot.
Yeah, you really don't log a horse a lot, Mike, until after you get him good and going, do you?
No, usually try to get them when they're driving and running the cattle good, and then we log them a little bit and then go tying down on them.
Hey, you mentioned you ran down the rope and tie. Hey, tell us what all that entails of, because it's totally different than running down the rope and tying a calf or anything else. There's a lot of intangibles that can happen. First of all, you got a right or left tie, so tell us about what your typical day is running down the rope tying.
Well,
practice tying is what it is.
I usually a lot of times I practice by myself. Or
do you use real steer or do you use something?
I use a real steer. There's nothing better than a real steer, I don't think.
Okay.
Them dummies, I've used them, and a lot of guys use them, but boy, they sure knock the hide off my hands when I mess up. So I just use the real one.
You start off with a real one, so let's go from there right there.
I usually practice by myself or with one other guy, and we give them just a little bit of relaxation drugs and lay them down out there and tie on the left. We usually, however they hit, that's where we tie. And we used to tie a lot. The older I get, not quite so much tying.
What do you mean tie on the left, Mike?
Like if the steer falls with his feet to the left, we'll run down and tie, but you're tying left-handed there. Or if he turns over to the right-hand side, you're running and stepping across the rope and tying him on the right with your right hand.
That's where I'd have a lot of trouble nowadays. That little skip across the rope.
Did you do much putting them on a sled and do much sled work?
Yes, and would like to go back to doing more of it. We used to do a lot of it behind a pickup.
Right.
I remember one time we did it, and police showed up one day. We was doing it down a sand road, and this police showed up. He goes, "Why are you dragging that dead steer down the road?" No, sir, he's on a sled. We're practicing. But I don't know how many miles we went behind a pickup, stepping off that pickup and going across that sled.
I always thought that was bad. You got more out of that because you got your getting down plus your footwork going back to a steer or getting over a rope for a right-handed tie and everything. And I always thought you got more out of that on a sled.
I would love to do more of it. It just takes kind of a little team to do it, and a lot of times my team's not around.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Jimbo. Probably the best I've ever tied or felt like I was tying in my life was behind a sled when I was doing that quite a bit. You get a lot more realistic action on that deal, I feel like. And
right. I'm
with Mike too. I like tying a real steer. They just have not made a fake steer that comes close to the feel of tying a real steer yet. You can kind of get some of the actions down and mimic some of the movements, but it's nothing
like the same.
It's not even 25% of the same of tying a real steer, I don't think.
Calf rope would done me the same way, and just never was. Just didn't feel like you was doing anything to me when I was on them.
I think you can learn to use that left hand. It's good for that, you get that left hand a little more coordinated on a dummy, and stuff. But there's nothing like the real thing for sure.
You've trained a lot of pretty nice horses, Mike, through the years. But this year, you had a horse end up runner-up, second to the AQHA Horse of the Year this year. Tell us a little bit about that horse.
Well, that horse is all barrel horse bred, really. He's a Play Gun Firewater Fiesta, which was Kelly Yates' barrel horse. On the bottom side, he's a Sunfrost, which is another barrel horse, and Boondocks John. And I got that horse off the Cowans in South Dakota. And he don't really look like the old-timey steer horses like I used to ride. He's a little more sleek, a little more kind of a pretty horse. Kind of looks like a barrel horse. But he's been a good one for me. He can run, he really scores, and he's kind of a fun horse just to be around. Got a neat personality and just a nice horse.
How long does it take you to make a steer horse from start to where you can, he ends up second horse of the year for the PRCA and the AQHA?
All depends on the horse. Some of them take forever, it seems like. Anywhere from, I feel like it takes a full year to kind of get one where you want him before you even go to hauling him. But I like the younger ones more than I do the older ones because they seem to listen a little more. I've had a couple of horses I started one year, turned them out for a couple months, and picked them up the next year, and they were good enough I made the finals on them. They were 6 years old, pair of 6-year-olds. This is the first year I've really hauled this gray horse. I started him last fall, hauling him just a little bit, and took him to everything. Only one rodeo I didn't ride him at. I rode a horse of, I had to fly to Abilene. I rode a horse of Tough Hardman's, a real good horse.
How old's this one you're talking about? How old is he this year?
He's 8.
That's pretty impressive to me. That's relatively young to win that kind of award, I think.
Well, it's kind of, I don't know the horse that won it. I imagine he was a pretty nice horse too, but
He's a real nice horse.
and the guy riding him is really, really hard to beat. It looks like old Cole Patterson. You've seen his career come from all the way from club ropings all the way to real contention of winning the world this year.
He's going to win it. There's no way they can stop him.
Yeah,
Unless he falls off every round, and that ain't going to happen. He's got a real nice horse, and his dad has done a real nice job of training Cole on becoming a really great steer roper.
Yeah, I saw him a few years ago at Osage roping, and he was in the B roping. And boy, howdy, I watched one run, and I said, man, that kid right there is going to be.
He's got more talent.
Might be the best, one of the best steer ropers I've ever seen.
Yeah, he's athletic. He's smart. He's aggressive. Yeah, it's almost like it's like he took all his dad's learning or experience, and he's got it.
And he's got that long reach that a lot of the great guys got, like Scott Snedeker and those. He's a little bit bigger and real athletic looking.
Unreal athletic.
When did you buy your PRCA card, Mike?
I think it was in either 95 or 96. I think it was 95. And I had no business buying it. I wasn't anywhere close. I just wanted to go. And I just started roping steers, and I think I won like $1,000 that year. And it was a year Trevor and Snedeker and Leo Campbell and everybody went. I had no business on the road. I should have been the practice pen.
That was your rookie year?
That was my rookie
Golly.
year. I should have stayed. I should have been the practice pen because I had no business.
Trevor Brazil and Scott Snedeker.
I come home halfway through the year and says I need to learn how to rope better. And went back to practice pen.
Oh.
So when you're starting to train a steer horse, what's your first few steps to do when you're training a steer horse, Mike?
Just make sure they're broke.
Okay. Put a lot of miles on them outside?
Yeah, I'd like to have one. Don't get the miles that I used to on them because don't have the cattle deal like we used to. But if I could find a broke one that's had lots of miles, and then I log my young horses a lot and drive them with a sled and rope on them a lot.
Drive them? You mean you hook them up like a workhorse and drive them like they're hooked to a wagon, or?
I got a little sled with a little that you tie your steers on. I weld them in a little tractor seat on it, and I used to use a harness, and now I just put a rope on the saddle horn and got my drive lines, and just off we go. We drive across the pastures. They don't want to stop. We just keep going. Sometimes it gets a little entertaining, little hairy going across there, but they usually start giving it up pretty good.
I had a friend that used to buy lost spoiled horses, Mike Butler, out there in El Dorado, Oklahoma, and he built him a dadgum chariot, just like a Roman chariot. It would come about chest high to a grown man, and 2 or 3 of you get in it. It was big, and he run a tongue out on it, and he had a place, and he put a trailer hitch, like a gooseneck trailer.
Oh yeah,
and he had a tube.
I've seen one of those.
He had a tube of 6 that he had a ball bolted through and had leather with buckles, and he could suck that thing down on the saddle and put on them old spoilt broncs. And he had a big round pin. We'd get in that sucker with a beer and get in there and hit it. I mean, he had blinders on them, but man, they didn't know what was going on. It would help them. It was good for everything.
We built one of those on living
Did
Kansas.
Yeah.
We're across them wheat fields.
I've never seen. Oh my gosh, I've never seen another one. I've never heard of that. That's cool.
They get the bucket on that thing, and it was around.
You remember that one Pete had out there for so long, Part? We had a saddle with a piece of 2 7/8 drilled stem pipe on the top of it and a gooseneck thing,
Yeah,
and they didn't hook
deal.
together.
Yeah.
So the dang thing could pop off the.
It wasn't much fun when it came off because you stop now.
Oh man, that's wicked. I never went outside in it, but that'd been a ride.
So you hook them up like you're driving a team of horses, basically, but only one.
Yep.
Why do you do that, Mike?
I want mine to listen to when I say the word "whoa" is where they're listening. There's different ways the guys are doing it these days. I kind of like the old school way of where you drive.
So you're doing it to train your horse to listen to your voice commands and to keep going until they hear your voice commands, correct?
Yeah. Like I was pretty lucky this year. I had a horse that he was really attentive and listening. And there's a lot of times that them steers were starting to get up and I could smooch him to go on. He'd go and then I'd say the word and stop and they'd just be flat when I got there. And it worked out pretty good for me.
The Ben Johnson roping. Kind of tell everybody what that is if they haven't been to it or heard of it.
Oh, it's one of the prestigious ropings I think they ever had. I mean, they score them out there a long ways, and that pin's probably, 750, 800 foot long?
It's one of the largest pins in America.
It's a big one.
And they are running when they go down through there. It's a neat roping.
It's a cowboy deal, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's definitely a cowboy roping. So all those big ropings, about how many big ropings are there, Mike?
Well, there's like 4 or 5 of them. You got the Ben Johnson, the Wendy Ryan, the Spicer Grip, the
That one there at Happy we was talking
Happy,
about.
Wesley Sims. There's a big one up there in on the grass up there at Sheridan. I never have got to go to the Don King days. There's a lot of good ropings to go to.
You never have roped at that one? I've seen video of that. I'd like to see that.
I would really like to go. I just
Don't they have a
never
pasture bronc riding too?
Yes.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Looks like a fun time.
It looks like a real good time. I just never have got to go.
What's some of the big ropings that's no longer with us, Jimbo?
Oh, I don't think they have Laramie anymore, do they? That was a big jackpot roping, the King Merritt Memorial, you know?
That's who I was trying to think of, Jimbo, with the King Merritt. I've seen old flyers
Yeah.
from that one
Yeah,
where
it
they
started off. The first 2 or 3 years, it was $1,000 entrance fee, winner take all.
back in the
That was
50s,
before
right?
it was a memorial. King Merritt put it on. It wasn't actually a memorial then. He was still alive. I think 48 maybe was the first year or something like that. But then it turned into the King Merritt Memorial after he passed away and continued on. Then his son Hyde kept it going there through the 60s. I really don't know when the last year was. It was a big jackpot that really everybody looked forward to. And they had another one out in a place called Las Vegas, New Mexico. And I don't really know where that... Do you know where that's at, Cody?
Oh, yeah, that's right out there in New Mexico.
Yep.
Okay.
Northeast
Yeah.
Park County.
Okay.
I've been there.
They had a big one-header out there one time for $1,000. I'm not one-header, but a winner-take-all $1,000 deal. And there was a lot of them back then. You know, a lot of the big jackpots. Not really as many as there are now, but there was a lot of big ones, and they were just the crowds. People couldn't even find a place where they could get to them to even watch them. They'd be sitting on the rail up on the buck and shoot. I've seen them climb get up on top of the concession stand just where they could see the arena. You know, It was really, and those old guys were rock stars. You know, Choate and Jim and Shaw and Clark McIntyre and stuff.
Bob Crosby.
It was really, yeah. He was even before them, but Bob Crosby. You know, he roped Carl Arnold out there in New Mexico, and I don't know how many match ropings that were really just drew big. They were big crowds. You know, I think he roped him 5 or 6 times, and they'd get press and follow him around, and it was just a big deal.
I've seen the pictures, and like you said, the stand would just be packed, people standing everywhere. And
I know it.
It looked like they used a lot longer ropes to me. I don't know, maybe it's just angles, but some of them steers probably weighed 1,000 pounds back then, didn't they?
Well, it was those nylons were stretching, probably made them look like.
They might have. I remember seeing a flyer on that King Merritt deal, and I remember the $1,000 interest fees you're talking about, and that was way back then, and they advertised fresh Florida steers. And I can't remember if they said they were weighing. I was thinking they had to weigh, but I ain't going to misspeak. But anyway, it was on somewhere. I saw that flyer, and it just, boy, like a 50-foot score and fresh big black steers from Florida. And that would have been wild watching.
Well, you know, those Florida cattle, there was a couple of years there, 52 and 53, I think, when they closed the border from Mexico. and you couldn't get any cattle across there, so they had to go to Florida and get their cattle, and they were something else.
Oh, I believe
they
it.
were slick blacks and slick reds, and Jim said they'd get up bawling and try to hook your horse.
That's pretty Western.
They were wild. It just made it just a drawing contest.
Yeah,
because you either draw something you can win on, and there's some of them it didn't matter what you were riding, you weren't going to win a quarter on.
Yeah.
But I guess it was really crazy there for I think it was 52 and 53 when they roped those Florida cattle.
First Ben Johnson steer open, they brought them steers up from Florida too.
Really?
Did they?
Mm-hmm. Back in 54. I got a picture of them there in the museum.
Okay.
They're pretty wild looking, big horns. Big high horns is what they had. Not big wide horns, big high horns, big uns too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they were wild. It was crazy.
The Wendy Ryan roping, Mike. It's one of the big ones. You've won it. For everybody that don't know exactly what the Wendy Ryan roping is, tell us what it is.
Usually
and what's a little more special about that roping.
They usually rope fresh ones there. And the way that arena's set up, it's kind of a little more difficult than you think, because they go off to the catch pin's way off to the right. They kind of shoot them straight down that wall where all the crowd is. And it's a good roping.
Huh.
The year I won it, they changed the format, and it was a 2-head, and then the top, somebody come back and you matched. And they come to me and they said, well, we're doing it like the PBR. And I said, I don't know what the PBR is. And they says, well, you get to pick what steer you want and what position you want. And they said, what do you want? And I said, I want the slowest steer in the last roper every time. I said, you're joking. And they said, no, that's the way we're doing it. And I said, I'm in.
You got to pick your steer.
I got to pick.
I'll be door.
You got to pick out of 2 steers, you got to pick one. I said, well, I want the slowest one, and I want the last position in a row.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
The year before, I'd come back leading that deal, and I needed to tie it down, and I had a steer that either kicked or kicked loose or something. I ended up winning second or third or something on that roping. And they asked me, and they says, what'd you think of this year's format? And I said, well, I liked it this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the old wise tale is the oldest time right there with rodeo people. The losers love it. Hate it, I mean. And the winners love it no matter what it is, really.
Right.
No matter the format
Exactly.
and everything. The winners always love it, but the
Losers hate it.
losers don't like it sometimes. Hey, Jimbo, do you got any rodeo history on old Wendy Ryan down there?
No, I really don't, Cody. I never was down there. I don't know what year it started, but I don't really know much about it, just to be honest with you. I never was there.
Finally did it. Got him stumped on one.
You've been trying for 6 months.
I know. I've been trying to stump him for years now.
That was cold, Jimbo. I feel for you.
But it's a little
cold.
out of our circle down there. I mean, it is kind of it's a world renowned roping, but it's very, very special in the Fort Worth area to those people.
Cody's having a big bad hair day. He's trying to pick on everybody.
I know it.
The equipment, Mike. The equipment you use. Your ropes, your strings. What are you using and what are they made out of?
The ropes nowadays are so hard to get the good ones, because everybody wants the old ones from. I'm using rope from 20 or 30 years old, because them new ones are just not very.
They're calling them polys, and they're not polys like we was raised on.
No, they're. I had one break on me yesterday.
No kidding.
A new one. They're just not the same. They say that stuff comes from over there in China or Japan. They use it for fishing rope, and then we're just a sideline off the deal, and they get it. But they say, I guess picking it out because they had lead in it, and them ropes that got the lead in are the best, because you can't break them. They're good.
Them old red burners and 80s down there at Tish, those are some of my favorites. And I like classics, but you can't get them no more.
No.
I think that might explain what's wrong with me, Jimbo. I was sitting there chewing on a lead rope as a kid.
Right. It might be.
Hey, Jimbo, what kind of equipment was your granddad using there? Just to give kind of a reference. Length of rope, and then we want Mike to tell his length of rope and stuff.
Well, I don't really know the length of rope, to be honest with you, Cody. But I know they started out with grass ropes, and rope steers with grass ropes. Some broke a lot of them. And then in 46 was the first time my grandpa come across any nylon ropes. Fred Larry had showed up with some. Nylon was developed in World War II for parachute cord. So that's when, after the wars, when the nylon ropes really went to showing up. And they were a big improvement as far as they wouldn't break. But, boy, they sure stretched a lot, and they didn't feel as good. You know, you'd find some that were too soft or some of them that were too hard, and they took a lot of preparation. You know, they cooked them in the oven and then stretched them to a tree just as far as they could stretch them and leave the car tied to them, you know, and all that kind of stuff. You know, they didn't come out of the can ready to rope, let's put it that way.
What all kind of special preparation do you got to do your ropes, Mike?
I don't do much to mine anymore.
How long are they? What's the diameter of them?
I use a 10.5. Them ropes are usually about, I think I measured them one time, and they're 26.5 on average. I usually, a lot of guys tie their ropes short. I usually tie mine at the end. Everybody says, well, that's because you're throwing so much rope. And I said, well, not all the time.
Yeah, they're making ropes shorter now, too, I think.
Yeah, the ropes are shorter. I think they figured it out, because when I first started, I found me an old rope the other day, and it was 32 foot.
You remember them king ropes, how long the tail of those babies used to be when you tied them off?
Yeah. And now
if you didn't cut them off, they were that long.
Them king polys were 30 and 32 back in the 80s, weren't they?
Yes, and now they're 26. 25, 26 foot.
We was up at the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame in Colorado Springs back 30 years ago. Me and a buddy stopped. We was going up north, and they had a whole section of, that's the only time I've ever been in there, but they had a whole section of old steer trippings, the by itself, and from the, like Jimbo was saying, from 40 whatever up through a certain time, there was 4 or 5 of them guys had their world championship saddles, their tie strings, and there'd be a nylon rope laid there. And some of them had a horn knot tied in the end of it, like Texas style cow punching. Some of them had a braided, but there were several of them that they had spliced together. They like wore it out, and it felt so good, and you could tell it was hard to get. And they had switched ends and tied them a Honda in the other end, but they had to lengthen it so it'd be long enough. So they had to tie an extension of another rope on the bottom of it, and there was a cool little knot in there that I couldn't figure out. I did that later, actually, just say I did it. So. But I thought that was interesting. You don't see anything like that anymore. But that's how hard a good rope was to get back.
Splicing your ropes. I've had to do it one time.
You're seeing a lot more of it now.
Really?
Guys, I've turned mine around.
Yep.
And had up there at King's.
Oh, I used to do it.
And then I got some more, and we're starting to splice on.
You bet.
Because them good ropes are just.
They're getting hard to find.
You can't find them.
I've got one I used up at Holt's in 1990 that I put a Turk's head like that and then another square knot to extend it a third time, but I just kept it hanging on the wall someday. Anyway, I hadn't seen a lot of that, but I thought that was interesting.
What about this horse business now, Mike? How's the horse business evolved since you got in it compared to now?
Horse business has gone crazy.
The rodeo horse business, because that's something you know a lot about right now.
Whatever you want for one, just ask us. Somebody's probably going to give it to you.
Well, you just can't go buy one. If you could just go buy one, everyone would be riding one.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, there's just not. I think there's more things with the team roping, with the World Series and the U.S. and
so much money in it.
So much money in it. I think everybody's getting involved, and they're just not and there's no horses you can go to a ranch and buy anymore that they've rode out and did this and that you could pick up and just go to roping on like there used to be. There's nobody riding them horses, and I think they're not breeding as many horses either, and it's just made the horse deal just absolutely crazy. I mean,
they had that sale down there at Sixes the other day where bags and pitchforks and them horses are just prospects, unreal, 20,000.
Prospects are bringing what a finished horse would bring, not too long ago.
Not too long ago. Now,
and I've heard there's guys that'll come down to Arizona during the fall for the big ropings before Vegas and not haul a horse. They're rich. They'll just drive down there and pay 50 or 70 for a head horse.
Like it's nothing.
And rope that fall and then sell him and go back home. That's what I've heard. I don't know.
It's gone crazy. It really has.
The money is stupid.
What's the most expensive steer horse you ever heard of sold? You don't have to mention any names. You can just say a number.
I know of one for 100, and I know for another one for 150.
150,000.
That's hard. That's hard to imagine.
I know the one of 100, and someone definitely said that that's exactly what the horse brought.
The one for 100, I know is exactly.
And they got another one in on trade for free on the deal.
And I know there was 2 horses on that for 100 that I know of, and I heard 150 on the other one. I don't know that for a fact.
Golly,
it's unreal.
It really is.
But the thing is, where are you going to go find one that you can go win on anymore?
Yep.
I had a chance to sell that gray horse, and all my friends told me I was crazy for not doing it. And I says, well, tell me where we're going to go find another
That's what
one
you're making your living on.
that I can go rope on right now.
Right.
What else do you do for a living, Mike?
I got a hay farm in Kansas, and I sell lots of horse hay and cow hay to like down I-35, anywhere from all the way down to Houston, all the way to usually starts there. I sell a little bit in Kansas, but not very much. But most of it goes straight down 35 to Oklahoma and Texas.
Well, if you know anything about horse hay, some of the best horse hay in the world comes from right there on the Kansas-Nebraska line, Sean.
No, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
I know a little about horse hay. I know about buying it, but thanks for that, Cody.
Yeah. I'd say there in New Mexico, Arizona's make the prettiest alfalfa hay I've ever seen, but
Yeah.
they clean up Mike's a little better. You get more bang for your buck on the deal.
That good alfalfa's hard to beat.
How do they get a hold of it if they need to? If anyone wants to buy any alfalfa hay, you just sell it by the semi-load, correct?
Mainly just by the semi-load. I don't do the little stuff. I'm kind of a wholesale guy. I want to sell it right out of the field.
Not 10 bales at a time.
Not 10 bales at a time. I don't have the patience for that very good.
But you could probably fix them up with good horse hay or some good cow hay or any kind of hay they ever need. You're on Facebook, Mike Chase on Facebook. I'm friends with him.
Yep.
You can look him up on Facebook.
Facebook.
You message us right here on our site, and we'll give you his number. All right. You're getting ready for the finals right now, Mike. This makes your 7th appearance to the national finals. When you made your first national finals, where was it at?
It was at Amarillo, Texas.
Amarillo, Texas.
And
Well, that's a good place to rope, isn't it?
it was a really good place to rope.
I tell you what, that arena in Amarillo just it's one of the greatest setups just to put on a good rope. And I mean I've always enjoyed roping in there. If one step right, it didn't bother me. One step left is even better.
Yeah,
So,
it was a good place to rope. There was good. I've been at Guthrie. It was good to rope, and up there at Mulvane's a real good place to rope too.
tell us about the setup up there at Mulvane.
Mulvane's pretty much like it is all summer long. It's just like your typical rodeo arena, and if you got a good one, you got to be fast, and if you got to run one down there, you got enough room to run one down there and tie him down.
Where are they having it at in Mulvane?
At the casino there.
The big Kansas Star Casino.
Kansas Star Casino.
Yeah.
He came
Mike,
in.
do you, excuse me, Cody.
No, go on, Jimbo.
I'm just asking you, that's basically a 10-head rope, and I've never roped in a 10-head rope, and do you prepare any different for a 10-head rope? Do you take a backup horse, or you try to use the same horse, or how do you approach that?
I take it back. I've took a backup horse. I've got a backup horse. This year's Tough Hardman, the guy I went with this year. He's got a real nice red dun horse. I'm using him as my backup, but my plan is just to stick on that gray horse unless something goes wrong. It's kind of hard to make your predictions on that deal. If you got a good one, you got to take the chance of placing on him. If you got one that's not so good, you kind of just need to tag him down.
Right.
What's your daily regiment coming into the finals? For everybody who don't know, the finals is exactly 1 week from today. We're talking to Mike 1 week out from the national finals. He's been getting ready for it every day. So what's it like all day, every day for you coming into this last week and the week before?
Well, this year's a little different. I'm a little older and a little slower, and when I went to the Northwest, I gained a little weight, so we changed the diet and did a little exercise, a little running first thing in the morning. And then we rope the dummy and we get the steers up, and we get to roping and quit in the evening by tying on them, and that's just pretty much all we do. We don't do nothing else.
You got some practice horses, or you still rope on your gray horse?
I'm roping on my gray horse and that red dun horse.
Practicing on him,
and that's pretty much all I got. I had a friend come by and wanted me to help him with his roping, and end up practicing on his horse.
Really?
And did that. But
how many really you run on your gray horse in the practice pen?
I don't hardly ever tie any down on that gray horse.
Oh, you don't? That's what.
That gray horse, I didn't hardly practice on him at all this summer.
Okay, that's what I meant. I thought you was roping some on.
I tie a couple down a week down on him, but
Okay.
that horse is funny. He don't take much practicing.
Yeah. Well,
he's one of them horses that if you just kind of leave him alone, let him do his deal, he works better.
Well, I've always heard that, a good seasoned horse, and what little experience I've had, well, they's good and seasoned. Yeah. Did them good, just leave them alone till the next show.
And then I've got the other horse, I've tied a few down today on him.
Yeah.
Just a few.
Okay.
I'm not, this year I'm kind of enjoying the ride instead of trying to kill myself.
Well,
last time I went to finals, I tried to tie everything I could down. I had them saddled. I jerked the steers. I did everything. When I got to the finals, I was so tired I didn't care if I was there.
Yeah.
This year I'm going to try to enjoy it a little
bit. Good. But that horse of Tufts is good. I've watched him.
He's a nice horse.
Do you still get to carry 2 loops, or they quit that?
They quit that. I don't know when. They quit that a while back.
Okay. You know, I knew I hadn't seen anybody tie on a second rope in a long time, but I thought maybe a 10-head roping like the finals, they might let you carry 2 loops.
I think they just kind of went for it to go a little faster.
What's your opinion on that deal? I've noticed they've done that. A lot of calf ropers don't carry them anymore either.
I think the calf rope is the only event you can still carry 2 loops in at the national finals, if they even allow them to do that anymore. I know they did last year.
They do.
Yeah.
I think it just be just like the rodeo.
I do too. That's my opinion.
One loop, one attempt, flat fall.
I like it. I agree. I've seen so many, or not a whole bunch, but some wrecks. Just that second loop, you're trying to hurry. Your horse is out of control sometimes, and you're not going to win nothing, but maybe something average. It's just a big risk. Looks to me like. Same way with that second jump in bulldogging. I never would hardly take that one.
I don't think they should change it. No different it is from the rodeo that you rodeo out all year long.
Yeah, I agree.
So they're having it up there in Kansas. You've been getting ready for it. You haven't been killing yourself this year like you have most years.
It may show with the deal, but we have been roping a lot. We've been roping a lot.
You know, what makes this sport of rodeo, especially steer roping, how old are you now, Mike?
I'm 49 in September.
49 years old. You know, according to the records, it's just one of your best years money-wise won in the PRCA. There's a lot of money to be won this year. You know, what makes it where this 49-year-old guy in this sport can compete with all these 18 to 21-year-olds? What is it about this sport that, you know, I look at this sport and there's a lot of new names coming up, but there's still a lot of the old names. Rocky Patterson, Scott Snedeker, several of them. It's all 50, approaching 50 or over 50.
Well, like the guy announced it one time at the San Angelo at the big roping fiesta. It says steer roping is not about time, it's about timing. And I think it's the maturity of the older guys have done it so much, like the Rocky Pattersons, the Scott Snedekers. You kind of know how everything's going to happen, and you don't run over yourself. You kind of know when to leave your horse, and just
that makes a lot of sense. That's one thing. The few steers I've tripped, I used to rope calves, and I started to go at it like calf roping, and I like the rope going 2 stock. And the guys that were showing me, you know, Walter Arnold and Ted Darty up there in Silverton, he said, roll up there and get everything right. Slow down a little bit. And when I did that, it worked. And it was just a lot more relaxed. Not relaxed, but what you're saying. I mean, just get everything right. You save time getting it right than trying to jam up, don't you?
Yeah, there's some guys now that are coming on that are young and very athletic and fast down the rope.
Yeah, what about some of these guys? Just came out of nowhere. Did I read that Taylor Santos made the finals in the steer open?
That boy figured it out, and his rope's good. And I tell you what, I think his calf roping career was forward because he can get down that rope, and it shows. Just
there's a lot of calf ropers. Looks like they're in their steer roping.
Garrett Hale, he went from the calf roping. He can time fast. And you still got your regular steer ropers like the Fishers and the Snedekers and the Pattersons and the Chet Heron. Chet Heron's fast down the rope.
Oh, yeah. Chet's fast.
Fast.
We got Thomas up there. Thomas Smith.
Thomas Smith is really big, strong, athletic, and can get down the rope.
He's been hot coming through the fall, looked like. Made a real surge. Well, Sean, you got anything for Mike over here?
I was wondering, what was your best rodeo this year?
Oh, had to be the 101. I mean,
Yeah, well, that's what I mean.
Huntsville was pretty good, but Cheyenne was good. I won second up there in the round.
did
up
you?
there.
What do you think about the new format up at Cheyenne?
I like the old format. I think they need to keep to tradition. I'm not for
Not a fan of that.
It really made me scratch my head. I'm not saying anything bad about Cheyenne, but if you go talk to them, they tell you they're all about the tradition and everything. But then they did take a lot of the tradition out of it this year. It seemed like it made it more fair for everybody when I looked at it, the reason they were doing it. But I like that tradition too.
I've heard a lot of people say what y'all are saying about that. Yeah,
Cheyenne's always been pretty good to me. I've never won it, but I've placed there a lot.
Really?
I won the first round quite a few times.
you bet.
I like it that the cattle were a little different this year. They were used instead of fresh. They
were.
They shortened the score up.
I didn't hear all that. What did they shorten the score to?
20 foot instead of
Hey.
30, and they were used steers. They used at a couple rodeos.
So it wasn't so much of a drawing contest this year as
Yeah.
Well, all your chips still got to fall just right out
Well,
at Cheyenne,
yeah.
no matter what.
I'll bet I wouldn't know. I'm talking, but
I'm just, it's a great rodeo. I don't have anything bad about it. It just,
I don't either. I mean,
like
I
tradition.
still go to as long as they have it.
I bet.
But I'm still would like to have one of them little Tony Llama buckles.
Oh man,
Well, it's the only time of year I really miss roping. So
Really?
right around Cheyenne time.
I
you
tell you
always recognize one of them buckles. I don't care where you're at.
I always like leaving. When we leave after the Ben Johnson, we go on the tour. That's my favorite from leaving to go to Pecos to Prescott all the way up to Cheyenne. That's my favorite time to be gone on the road.
You bet.
Them rodeos, I love those. I love all them rodeos. They're good.
Hey, Jimbo,
Yeah.
you got anything for Mike?
Well, just thank you for putting up with us today, and we want to congratulate him on a good season, and really wish him well next week at Mulvane, and hope he really does good. And then we want to wish our Pawhuska's own Chet Herron and Thomas Smith the best up there, and all the ropers. Want them all to do good, but can't help but favor a few of them. But anyway, just thanks for visiting with us today, for sure. And Sean, too. You too, Sean.
You bet, Jimbo. Good to talk to you. Can't wait for the next one.
He's been over here all sold up because you told him you wasn't wearing a pearl snap today.
Oh, no.
Well, I did.
You've got hope. You're still a young man. You've got hope.
Cavender's the other day, and I bought a hat, and I did look for some pearl snaps.
Well, at least I was on your mind. That means a lot.
I was actually going to wear one down there at the Hall of Fame next weekend.
Yeah,
I just couldn't find.
Well, we're going to have some one-on-one consultation with Mike here in a minute when we get done the podcast and talk about fashion for next week. So he's looking forward to that.
You bet.
And Mike, good luck next week.
Thank you.
Hey, Mike, you've dedicated your life to the sport of rodeo now. I've known you, I don't even know how long now. It's been a long time.
30-some years.
Yeah. Actually, he, I don't know, I'm going to tell this funny story. I remember him, he came and stayed. My dad was putting on an amateur rodeo in Hutchinson, Kansas, in an indoor arena in the middle of winter. Mm-hmm. Mike, he came to team rope calves. He entered the amateur rodeo. He asked if he could stay the night with us that night. Well, anyway, I don't know what transpired from that one night staying the night with us till he's still my dad's next door neighbor to this day, 20-something years later. So
Just kind of fell in right there, didn't he?
yeah. I don't have a brother, but he's as close to one as I have. We shared a bedroom for many years, and
Fought and fussed and everything.
fought and fussed and been a million miles together. Wouldn't trade most of it for nothing. I'd take some stuff back, Mike.
You probably don't remember that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's some of the memories that I don't
Some of the
remember.
memories that get away from you.
That's right. Everybody else remembers them. But anyway, you have dedicated your life to rodeo and the Western way of life and training horses. Very few people, has been able to do that, Mike. And you've made a lot of sacrifices to do it. So if you were telling some young kid coming up that was planning on dedicating his life to this sport, no matter what rodeo field it's in, what advice would you give him?
Get a degree and do something else. No. I mean, you got to love it. You're not going to get rich at it. you can make a living at it, but you're not going to get rich. But if you want to put the time in, it's very satisfying. Money won is twice as good as money earned. I'm just going to tell you.
Yes,
I've worked my tail off before. And that winning, it sure a lot.
Sure is.
I sure like it a lot better. You got to make some sacrifices. I mean, I've done some stuff that.
He lived in his camper for years on the bed of his pickup.
I made the finals the first year rodeoing out of his dad's cattle pot.
Is that right?
He said, I'll pay the fuel if you help me sort them steers. I made the finals in 03 out of a cattle pot.
That's rough. It made you appreciate it, didn't it?
Well, I mean, wasn't that bad. I mean,
No, but
you got to the rodeos, you was at all the rodeos.
Yeah.
You had to work a little bit, but you got the rope. I mean,
Yeah.
we roped a lot. I mean, I enjoy it. You got to enjoy it.
Yep.
You got to crave it. It's a lot of sacrifices.
A lot of good people, though. A lot of good
Oh,
members.
I've made a lot of good friends, lifetime friends.
Yep.
I mean, there's friends that I may not talk to them all the time, but if I called them right now and says I'm broke down the side of the road, I need some help now, bring some money. They said I'll be there as soon as it takes me to walk out the door.
Yep. That means a lot.
When I got hurt, I tore my knees up a couple times. There's a lot of the guys that really rodeoed and were the kind. They were the ones that sent me the text that says you need a pickup payment made or whatever you need made. We ain't got much money, but we'll make it for you can get by. They were good. They were some good friends.
You can't beat that.
I was down on my luck one time. We were up at Cheyenne, and I was down to exactly $0.0, and Mike loaned me $1,000 to keep rodeoing, for a few more days to see if our luck would change. So
just cowboy stuff.
that's right.
We've pulled fees before too. I've had a bunch of guys I've rodeoed with. We just pulled our fees, and if somebody won something off, we went again to another one.
Nothing's guaranteed to you in this sport of rodeo. That's for sure.
Except your friends when you make them.
Yep, for sure.
I wouldn't trade any of that for nothing.
Yep.
Well, all right, Mike. Well, thank you for putting up with us and taking the time out of your busy practice day right before the finals here to talk to us. And we so appreciate you talking to us and giving some insight on what it's like to travel up and down the rodeo highway nowadays. And you kind of got some old vintage stories in there, too. He's been going this deal since the early 90s.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, this has been old Mike Chase here. Thank you so much again, Mike. And we'll see everybody next week right here on the Cowboys of the Osage podcast. I'll see you next week when I get home, Jimbo.
You bet. See you, Cody.
Thank you, Jimbo.
All right.
Thank you, Cody.
See you, Jimbo.
Good luck, Mike. Get the money.
Y'all keep snapping.
That works. We should have had you do a plug.